I appreciate it. Let's let Jack I'd kind of like to have your side of the story, Jack, also, and also your previous, before you got into the Ravens, that you had seen some of this stuff already, I understand. Is that correct? Okay.
Hi, my name is Jack Drummond. I looked it up before I got here. I have 862 sorties and 893 hours in this airplane. I really enjoyed flying it. I flew it with U.S. Air Force markings on it. I flew it with Laotian Air Force markings on it. I flew it with Cambodian Air Force markings on it. And I flew it with Thai Air Force markings on it. The only one that I missed that I really wanted to fly was the Philippine Air Force, because they got them all when Cambodia fell. But I never made it. I flew B's, C's, D's, D-5s, and D-10s on the models. The neat thing about the D-5s and D-10s was everything was in the same place when you got in the cockpit, unlike B's, C's, and D's. Before I went to Laos, I flew what we call a night patrol out of Nakhon Phanom, Thailand, and we hunted trucks on the Ho Chi Minh Trail in T-28 D-5s. Our typical mission lasted about, took 30 minutes to get there, 30 minutes to get back, and you're out there with 30, 45 minutes, so the typical mission lasted an hour and a half, hour 45. Our airplanes had 6 stations on them, 3 on either side, plus guns. We'd have a couple of stations of cluster bomb units. Those were basically grenades that put out steel bearings when they exploded. Each tube of CBUs, each pod of CBUs had 6 tubes. So if you were stupid, you had the opportunity to do 12 passes. Not many people wanted to do that. We would have a can or maybe 2 cans of napalm. We would have a pod of flares and something else on the other station. Might be a hard bomb, might be a Willie Pete, something like that. We were talking to some of the 28 guys last night. They wondered how fast it went with all that stuff on it. It didn't. But anyway, we'd launch out of Nakhon Phanom, Thailand, and taking off to the south, you do a left turn, about 45 degrees, climb this clunker up to about 8,000 feet. It was about 30 minutes to the target, and that was my worst time, I'll tell you. If it was a clear night, you could see 90 miles. And at the end of 90 miles, there was somebody on the shift ahead of you out there hunting trucks. And there was a bunch of gunners shooting at him. And you could see them shoot at him from 90 miles away. And it was really kind of interesting. And you'd tune in the radio to see what was going on. And you'd hear the forward air controller tell him about, oh man, they're really shooting tonight. And you'd say, that's me next. Anyway, you go out there, the forward air controllers were already on the station. They would find the trucks for us. They'd either mark the trucks with a white phosphorus rocket, or hopefully there'd be trucks already burning on the ground, so you'd have a point that you could see with. They would pop a flare about 3,000 or 4,000 feet above the target. And when God said, let there be light, and a Raven dropped a flare, you could see it. Or in fact, dropped a flare, because those things are a 1.5 million candle power. My own preference was to get the hard stuff off, the heavy stuff off first. I like to have an airplane that would zoom just a bit after you dropped its bomb, so I wanted to get the heavy stuff off. If you were dropping hard bombs, you'd drop them above the flare light, roll in about 5,000 feet above the ground, drop about 2,500 feet above the ground, never get into the flares. And then you get into the CBUs and the napalm. They were guaranteed to kill trucks if you could find them. There was one little deal there. You had to get out in flare light to drop them. Now, one bunch of folks that I admired more than anybody else on that mission was the North Vietnamese gunners. Those guys never gave up. You could put bombs in their gun pit. It would be manned within minutes. You could shoot at them, you could holler at them, you could curse at them, and they kept shooting. Anyway, the airplane was really good for the truck mission at night. I can remember I had a string of 47 consecutive missions with at least one truck destroyed every night. The jet guys did not believe that, by the way, but we could see the ground, they could not. Anyway, that's my story of T-28s in night truck work. I like to call myself a pseudo-raven. In Laos, there are 5 Royal Laotian Air Force fighter squadrons located around the country. And we had a site commander at each of those places, an American, and that was me. While there, I flew the O-1s on the FAC missions, but my primary job was flying with the Royal Laotian Air Force. Some of them were not very good, and some of them were so much better than I that I couldn't believe it. Squadron commander that I had at Savannah Ket at one time had over 5,000 combat sorties on the T-28. Now let me tell you about how good the T-28 is. You take these guys, the Laotians, and later on the Khmers, who did not come from a technologically proficient society and had probably never operated a motor-operated vehicle. If it was a scooter. They did not speak English, and they went to Udon, Thailand, and 6 months later, they were combat pilots in this airplane. They flew the same model from first flight to last flight. I had a lot of admiration for the pilots that were their instructors. I never wanted that job. I preferred mine. I thought it was probably safer. My last comment on T-28, and by the way, I flew lots of other airplanes that dropped bombs. I flew, I think I can name them, Sky Raiders, A-37s, A-7s, A-4s, Hawker Hunters, and in its place in Thailand, this airplane was the only one that could have done the job that it did, period. It landed on dirt runways, it hauled a good load, you could load it by hand if you had to, and so I have a lot of admiration for the airplane. I have a lot of envy for the guys that still fly, and I have a lot of thanks for letting them, they're going to let me fly with them tomorrow. Thanks, Sam.